the idea of property, when in fact the word neighborhood now lends itself to all three possibilities of person, place, and thing. Yes, a neighborhood is a series of physical structures: offices, apartment buildings, playgrounds, markets, houses of worship. But the word also contains the idea of the people who fill those spaces: the residents, the workers, and students. Something about the synthesis of these people in these places make this thing called neighborhood. As Takala Keaton, a 45-year-old lifelong resident of Brooklyn, told me, when I talk about neighborhood, I think 70% of a neighborhood is made up of the people who live there and how the people relate to each other. Theoretically, the people who spend the most time participating in a neighborhood could also be the people who bring the most of the money to that neighborhood. Modern capitalism, however, creates an environment in which international investment plays a leading role. The effect is that the people who spend the most time in a neighborhood and the people who spend the most money there are increasingly discrete groups. Alan Fishman, who serves as chairman of the Brooklyn Navy Yard development, demonstrated this fact when he described raising money for that project with the EB-5 visa program, a visa for foreign nationals in exchange for a minimum development investment of $500,000. Alan said it was Chinese people or Vietnamese people or whatever people, Korean people, Indians, I don't know. No fuss, no muss, no memos. We raised $50 million. While lots of people bring money to a neighborhood, including visitors passing through for a week or an hour, it is land developers, by and large, who bring the most money. Land developers can be people, those that own their own home, the wealthiest among us who own several homes, or maybe even numerous properties across the city or the country or the world. And land developers can be institutions, government agencies, banks, hedge funds. These individuals and institutions operate in a global economic system that cultivates absentee land ownership, obscuring them from the people who populate their buildings. And when the people who own the development, who own and develop the land in the neighborhood, do not spend their money and time with commensurate generosity, interacting with that neighborhood, there is no synthesis between person and place. It reduces our understanding of neighborhood to land and buildings, devaluating the people who fill those spaces, and worse still, in some cases, implying that people, like property, can be controlled, if not owned. A 26-year-old Brooklyn developer named Ephraim, who hesitated to give me his last name, did not hesitate to tell me, every tenant has a price. In 21st century capitalism, people, like places, can be purchased. And neighborhoods can be made in whatever way optimizes the capital that can be extracted and wired to Dubai or London or Los Angeles. No other considerations, adequate amenities, sufficient housing for the entire population, recreation, matter in this context. An environment where money invested always wins out over time invested is an environment that undermines the idea of neighborhood by removing people from the definition of the word, and ultimately the possibility of how a neighborhood can be made to suit the needs of the people who make their lives there. The separation between ownership of physical space and the people who populate them severs the process that makes a neighborhood socially, economically, and environmentally healthy. If those who own neighborhood as place are not neighborhood as people, then those places and those people cease to function as, cease to make this thing called a neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, DW. I'm really excited about DW's next book. It's coming out this spring. It's called The Edge Becomes the Center, an oral history of 21st century gentrification, for which he has been speaking to organizers on the 596 Acres Network, as well as real estate developers, people in government, people in neighborhoods, and all of us who make the city. I'm really, really excited to read it and learn about conversations he's been having with all of you. And welcome to Reviewing Renewal.